Okay, so I have two housekeeping things to bring up at the start of the episode, if that's okay, Bill.
I'll allow it.
So the first is the T-shirts, right? Remember ages ago we did the coat of arms thing? And
Yes.
Cool Mayor won it, and we're all like, we're going to put it on T-shirts, and there has been no movement over the past few months about that. And you brought this up last time in a private message between the two of us, so I figure it's good to put it on air. We are waiting for Patreon to incorporate merchandise into their platform. Because it'd be nice if it was all in one location and didn't have to go set up new accounts on various like merchandising sites and all that sort of jazz. Like I kind of would like it to all be in one place. Patreon is working on this at the moment, and I believe they're very close to finalizing this merchandising side of the thing. So heads up, there may be t-shirts coming maybe by the end of the year, all going well, but it does depend on Patreon's schedule. That makes sense?
Great. Perfect.
Cool. Just as a heads up. And I can't wait as well, because I would like a Artifexian coat of arms t-shirt. Even if no one else buys one, I just want one for myself.
Well, I want one. We can wear them together, and we can like go around together as pals.
We
and
can.
Everyone will see that we have the same clothes, and we'll know that we're pals.
That's how it works. The other thing is our address pal has changed for reasons I don't know. I got contacted by them. They were like, "Hey, we've changed your address." So I am going to put a send us stuff link in the show notes with the new address. Do not use the old one. I believe I have eradicated it from all existence on the site. But just to be sure, if you're thinking about sending us a thing, go with what's in the show notes under this video, under this podcast episode. On that, I would like to request people send us a thing. I would love if people could send us money, right?
Licorice. Oh.
No, licorice as well, yeah, but money, right? Now, I don't mean as in like donations and things. I would like to start a money collection because I was away on holidays. We'll get to it in the green room. And I brought home Moroccan currency, the smallest note in Moroccan currency. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I was like, oh, we have listeners all over the world, and we're in a unique position that we have this. So I was like, wouldn't it be amazing for my collection if people were to send us the smallest denomination of note that they can? So if that's the thing that you might want to do, and maybe attach a little note to it and we'll read it out on the show, please do, because I'd love to start this collection. For people who are kind of like, well, why don't you just go get stuff changed? That can sometimes be a bit tricky. Like I wasn't able to purchase one going to Korea. I couldn't go into the bank or into Bureau de Change and just purchase one. So yeah, it takes people in far-flung places to send money for it to happen. I'd like to start a money collection. If you'd like to send me stuff, that'd be amazing. Please keep it only small, no big bucks, like just literally just so I have a specimen from your fine country. Make sense?
That makes absolute sense. What do you have so far? Do you have any one left over?
I don't know. Maybe the captain has some one left over, but I don't have any one left over. I literally have, man, euro, the Bilpolian dollar, and the dirham, which is the Moroccan currency. Bill has a cold, everyone. Just a heads.
Sorry, guys. There will be sniffles and snorts and things.
And the Bilpolian currency is going to you. I'm going to send it to you when I get a chance.
Thank you.
So I need to replace the dollars.
Right.
So I really only have two specimens, euro and dirham. And it'd be cool to expand that.
Yeah. I've got, obviously I've got euro. I've got sterling, of course. I don't remember if I have any American dollars anywhere. What I do have is some old Zambian kwacha.
Yeah, that's class.
I've got quite a bit of it actually. I've got like 3 or 4 notes, I think.
Hang on, okay. Do you have this near to hand? Could you send me a picture?
I do not. I have it. It's at my parents' house. I might be able to send you a picture later today if I might go to my parents.
Yeah, or actually, hold on. Let me Google. Google has pictures on it sometimes.
Well, no. Now, hold on. The thing is, they redenominated the currency in 2013 they changed the value of it, I think, and like reset it. So I don't know if they introduced new banknotes as well. So I have the one I was there in 2006, I think. So it was before they changed it.
Well, doing a quick Google search here, the currency looks like absolute garbage. Look, do a quick Google search for Zambian kwacha, and it looks like a mess of overlapping everything. That's not very aesthetically pretty. I got to give it to the dollar. Like, a lot of people mock it for its kind of boringness, but the dollar is a very coherent item. Do you know? It's a very coherent design to it. And the euro is decent as well. Let me take out a euro here. The euro's not bad. It's not bad. It's a bit messy, but it's not bad at all. But yeah, that Zambian money is crazy.
I like the euro as the overall design of it across the notes. Like what's the word I'm looking for here?
Yeah,
the currency as a whole is a little work of art, not just the individual notes are works of art.
That's actually, do you know what? That's fair. I'll give you that.
There was a point at which the British currency, like, because obviously money in the UK is still kind of semi-medieval, so it's all over the place, and new coins are introduced independently of others, so it's ridiculous. But there was a stage at which you could take all of the coins and their reverse sides, like their tails, if you arrange them a certain way, you would get an image of the royal arms, I think.
What?
I think so, yeah. Or maybe it was if you had enough €1 coin, £1 coins, they all, like, different ones were printed with different parts of the royal arms in the back. There's something like that. I remember when I lived there, a friend showed it to me.
Huh.
I thought it was rather neat.
Man, I always found the £1 coin in England to be really strange because it was so chunky.
It was small and dense. I think they've gotten rid of that, though.
Have they?
The last 2 times I was over there was a different pound coin that was more like a euro coin.
Oh.
It was made of 2 metals. And I didn't see any of the old, the small, dense ones.
Oh, okay. £1 coin. Let me have a look at this. Oh, yeah. Would you look at that? Those small, dense ones were a bit of a feature.
Yeah, I like them.
Oh, that's amazing. What year is this dated as? Now, Bill, come here. If you're going to ask people to send money to you, right, for a collection, do you think it should be notes or coins? Because I feel like coins is what people usually collect, but coins are they're not easily storable, whereas notes are very, very easily storable. But then notes,
you can put them in like a Magic the Gathering card folder.
You could, and in fact, I intend on buying one of those again. I have just gotten back into playing Magic, so what do you think? Coins or notes? Which should we do? Which would you advise here? Or both, I suppose. You could do both, but then
whatever people want to send. I mean, if you're building a note collection, I'd be kind of a purist that I'd want it to be one thing. I'd want it to be one or the other, personally.
Yeah, I'd be the same.
And you seem to have started with a note kind of affair, so
yeah,
I'd be inclined to stick with that. But
my gut is saying notes because they're almost like little works of art. Not that coins aren't little works of art, but like the idea of pictures on paper is kind of like the primal sort of work of art. So I think notes. Anyhow, listener, if you want. And if you feel so inclined to help me out, I would greatly appreciate it. Links to the address pal will be in the show notes. And send me stuff. Oh, and I will say, actually, Americans, I hate to say this, but don't send me dollar because the majority of listeners here will be American, and so I'm afraid that everyone is going to send dollars, and I'm not going to get anything else. So. Americans hold back a little bit, unless you have like a special dollar or something like that, in which case go for it. But yeah, there you go. That's the address pal. Anything else to add, Bill, or to chime in on?
I don't believe I do. No.
Cool. All right. Final thing on my end is I would like to give thanks to the wonderful soul that is Gilligot. who started or who finished or was involved in the great Wikipedia editing war that was fixing the Schlieveneering Wikipedia page. It is amazing that all has been righted, and it says now Schlieveneering is an imposing mountain. Without quotation marks, without sarcasm, it's great.
A grim peak.
Does it say a grim peak?
No, but it ought to. That'd be cool.
No, Bill. We don't actually want to make sarcastic edits. We want to correct the world here. So those quotation marks had to go.
We had 2 people on YouTube claim that they had fixed it for us as well.
Well, I think what happened was a couple of people did, and it got switched back and forth. I think it did actually cause a bit of a minor editing war. I do like Gilligott's reason for this, which is it was the removal of the quotes were removed because it was patronizing to locals. Example, the YouTuber Artifexian, which I think is really funny.
Nice one.
We had someone in the Reddit dispute the idea that it is a mountain, and I'm totally on board with that. Like they were saying, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying that it felt more like a hill, like 500 meters up is not really a mountain. And that's fine. If we want to call it a hill, that's totally fine. But then we also need to call the Sugarloaf a hill. We can't be calling one a mountain and one, in quotes, mountain. We have universal nomenclature here. They're either both mountains or they're both hills, but they're definitely not one mountain and one sarcastic mountain. So I'm glad that's fixed. Thank you all. That was class. I really have become an internet person because I've sparked an edit war. That's how you know you made it, Bill. Can you get a Wikipedia edit war going?
Rally the troops. So, sorry, who was that on Reddit?
I have no idea. I can't remember. It just I remember reading it. I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
We will, if we find out this person, we'll stick him in the show notes.
Sure. And a shout out to Doctor Who 10 and Kvzvk on YouTube as well.
What did the two of them do? Oh, they were involved in the edit as well.
Well, they said, Edgar, I've fixed that for you. And YouTube has decided to stop actually playing for some reason. But from the timestamp here they've commented on, I guess it's also referring to the Wikipedia thing.
Cool. So thank you to all involved. You are the best of us. Real-time follow-up, Bill. The captain may have some Nepalese rupee, which is cool.
Cool.
Any listeners in Nepal? Do you think we have listeners in Nepal? I don't think we have listeners in Nepal.
Well, let's have a look at the Artifexian census.
Oh, have you got that handy? Hold on.
It's in the show, or it's in the.
It's in the Google Sheets, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the show. Yeah, hold on.
No one in Nepal as of the survey, but maybe.
Okay, well, at least I got a means of getting Nepalese rupee. That's pretty cool.
No one in South Asia at all, actually, that I can see.
Damn it! And we don't have any money left from our travel.
Malaysia.
In Malaysia,
that's more Southeast Asia, I guess. I don't know where we draw the lines between them. And with China, a few in China, which borders Nepal, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's amazing to think how many countries China borders. Like, it's crazy. It's so huge. Okay, shall we do some world building?
Certainly.
All right. Do you want to read your book of a yoke you've written this time?
It's only nearly 1,000 words. Chill.
All right. I'll see you in 15 minutes.
My dear cousin, it is not of our custom to give each other orders and make demands, but I must beg your indulgence on this occasion. By the time this letter reaches you, I will be nearly at home, and I insist that you take me out so I can tell you of the adventures I've had on this tour. My master advised me not to take up with the Tamar Company, and his warnings were not unwarranted. These past 200 days have been an education in the misery and confinement of life aboard a vessel, the drudgery of the work, and the pettiness and venality of those souls who make their trade thus. He said little of the danger I would encounter, and yet again old Simas proved wise. Had I known of the thrills and elation company life would allow, I should have downed my tools and quit his yard 6 seasons since. So much has happened I can scarce put the least part of it in a letter. When I reach Mirsphere, I will come directly to your house, so I can be taken right away to the nearest spot for some proper brandy. They don't keep you short of strong drink aboard, least of all in the company vessels, and least of all on my vessel, the Aspire. But proper brandy I have missed. To whet your appetite, I shall tell you of one story that gives a picture of the life I've led. 30 days ago, we were somewhere beyond the Usain Belt. Don't fear I have learned no navigation, cousin. I had just been assigned to gunnery for a few days, and we encountered a smaller vessel, low on the horizon, crossing our bow. Now there is no reason for an honest vessel to be travelling that terrain, so low to the ground, and certainly not at its heading. So our captain, a more ill-tempered woman I have yet to meet in my life, a bully and a cheat, but a master navigator and an uncanny tactician, gave the order to chase. We had the advantage of great speed over our prey, though they gave us some trouble in the night, and pulled a neat manoeuvre into the rising sun as dawn broke, almost blinding us and disappearing into the haze. Being on gunnery duty, I took little part in these affairs, but at last we got directly above them, and after a warning shot from our lowest battery, the smugglers, for that is what they were, struck their colours and halted. The captain did not descend, but instead sent the first lieutenant, a miserable gambler and a cheerful brawler, and the vessel's weird, less of an oddity than you might expect, though deeply inscrutable, and a selection of 6 crew, myself among them, to seize the vessel and deal with those abroad. They were a wretched bunch, ragged and ill, and the pickings of their cargo were upsettingly slim. The captain ordered the lieutenant and the weird to return to Aspire, and I was left to take the vessel to the company depot, back on the civilized side of the belt. I landed the prisoners. Don't fret, kind cousin. The company always leaves such disenfranchised souls on a high vantage point with rations, where they may attend to their own welfare until such a time as one of their kin will rescue them. Once I was airborne again, I learned that the smugglers had been navigating purely on natural skill and familiarity with the land. There was not a single navigational instrument or chart to be found in that mean vessel, and I, who had been working in gunnery, was lost in this land. Well, the Aspire was gone too far for me to signal or call back without appearing a fine fool in the eyes of my fellows and risking the captain's wrath. So I struck out, with nothing to guide me in this unfamiliar land but the sun. For 2 days I set the course by the sun, and by night I guided my vessel by the moon, or fasath, gleaming low in the sky, and sure enough, by dawn on the 2nd day I found myself crossing the belt. By noon of the 3rd day I reached the depot, and sure enough they had expected me only that morning. I consulted the charts there and found I had travelled by near the closest route possible. Do you think it may be the captain, experienced in the ways of smugglers, expected them to have no maps, and was testing me, or perhaps trying to have me punished for lateness? But I made a good time, and not even my brute of a captain can deny it. 2 days only by the sun, the moon, and the 4 inner planets, and I arrived within mere hours of her reckoning. But dear cousin, that is only one story, and the one I can most safely commit to paper. When you see me, you must not let me leave or get too drunk without I have told you of the Binny trader in Parav, or the battle above the Ceylon Lake, or the card game, my first week in the barracks. You will delight in all these, I promise you. I trust all is well in Mirsphere. Has my brother quite recovered from his illness? Do kiss your mother and father for me, and my mother, should you see her. If you see my father, tell him he is a scoundrel. Yours, Yar Te Yarthan, Probationary Officer 2nd Class, Tamar Company Fleet, Usain Province Depot.
Cool. All right, you need to give me a second here. I think I missed something.
No worries.
Oh, okay. So, your man dropped off the smugglers on this high vantage point and didn't time his thing quite well, and he couldn't get back to the main ship, and he had to use a smuggler ship to get back to the depot.
Oh no, Yar was sent back to take the smuggler ship to the depot as a prize.
Okay. And then, then he had to like do it without maps and things like that, and it's all cool and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. A couple of things here. Just not even related to your story, but like to whet your appetite, spelled with a H. Is that how you spell wet?
Whet, yeah. To
Oh,
whet an appetite.
I thought it's literally to wet, as in like to salivate. Like to...
No, to whet as in to sharpen, like whetting a knife.
Ah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that one whets a knife. I thought one sharpens a knife. That's interesting.
Yeah.
To whet your appetite. And I suppose in RP it should be pronounced whet with a wh.
I don't know if it's pronounced like that in RP, but it's certainly... Well, yeah, because let me see. This pronunciation guide here, I just Googled it to make sure I was using the right spelling. The pronunciation guide just says wet. But
okay.
I think I have a slight tendency to overpronounce H's in WH words.
Really?
Hold on, let's see. Without the whine merger. So it's essentially complete in England, Wales, the West Indies, South Africa, Australia. It's not found in Scotland or in most of Ireland. So yeah.
Wait. The wine merger is not found in most of Ireland.
Yeah, what it's saying here is most people will pronounce like wine as in cry the same as wine as in grape, fermented grapes drink.
Yeah, I do that.
You pronounce it as wine.
Yeah, the
you
baby
pronounce them the same.
The baby was whining because it was drinking wine. Yeah, they're the same thing.
Say that again?
The baby was whining because it was drinking wine.
Oh no, I definitely pronounce it as wine.
Oh, so you go the baby was whining.
Yeah.
Because he was drinking wine.
They're different words. They're totally different to me.
But the more I get into linguistics, the more I realize I don't think I speak like an Irish person. That's crazy. All right, well, to whet your appetite, or to wet your appetite with a H. Interesting. Can you tell me what the Usain belt is?
It's a mountain range.
Okay. What is Vessel's weird?
That's an officer position aboard these kind of vessels.
Oh, okay. And is the title weird? Is that an Earth thing? Like, is that a real thing?
No, it's a thing I've made up.
Ah, okay. So, what analogs would it have in real life?
There isn't really one.
Oh, okay. So what do they do?
Roughly. Sort of, without giving too much away, communication.
Okay.
Well, I guess you would have that in modern vessels, that you'd have like someone in charge of like radios and things. But communication and certain kinds of navigation, and I guess reference to kind of magic and things.
Okay. Oh, cool. And then the final thing, airborne. Mm-hmm. Once I was airborne, are these like sky pirates?
I don't think they'd appreciate being called pirates.
But these are like sky ships.
Yeah.
All right. Now, okay. So to paint a picture for me here, are these the sort of ships, as in like what I think of sky ships as being they're like galleys that float, or are you thinking of a totally different sort of design in your head?
Not like galleys that float, not like pirate ships with sails and things on top. Not like that. I haven't exactly figured out how I want them to be designed, but they wouldn't exactly be that, because, as I said, they've as implied in the text, they have batteries of guns that operate in different planes and at different directions. So they were above the smuggler vessel, and they fired downwards from their lowest battery. So,
but you can still have a galley-shaped thing, except with cannons coming out of the bottom. That does not exclude a galley form. Do you know?
I guess, but they're not anyway.
Okay, but are you thinking of them as being boat-like, or are we thinking of like them as just being analogs for airplanes, say?
No, more like ships.
Right.
Like I've used a lot of kind of like ship language, and kind of inspired by, reading things set in navies, that they refer to them as vessels, and that they have a kind of a ship-like construction and hierarchy.
And we are in Handwavia, yeah?
We are.
Okay, so it's canonical now that there are flying sky pirates in Handwavia.
Yeah.
they don't appreciate being called sky pirates. No, that's cool, man. Anything else to add?
There's a little kind of bonus here for anyone who can figure out where this is set in Handwavia.
Hold on. Okay, so but we know Fasath. We know that Fasath is the thing. Hold on, let me pull up your blog. What's your blog called again, man?
Janspar.tumblr.com.
Janspar.
Is where I put the Handwavia stuff.
Oh, wait, hang on. Fasath is a planet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. Okay, hold on.
Fasath is the desert planet.
It is. Oh, by night I guided my vessel by the moon, or Fasath gleaming low in the sky. Okay, but you have also mentioned that there was 2 days only by the sun, the moon, and the 4 inner planets. So it's obviously on a different planet. So you mentioned way back at the start about how when we talk about like the layout of the planets in this system, you talk about how each would have a different sort of shtick to it, because the whole planetary romance sort of thing. So I'm thinking that perhaps you mentioned something that would be conducive to flying ships and stuff. Would be in the same sort of genre. You mentioned that as being one of the planets. I think that's as far as I can get without looking back into it. Am I in any way close?
Yeah, you're pretty much bang on.
Oh,
so,
cool, great.
Actually, I'll get up the chart there. What was Handwavia and Dagger was the episode?
Possibly, yeah. It's been a long time, Bill.
So one of my goals in making this system was to populate the habitable zone as much as possible.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
So I've got 3 planets in the habitable zone. I've got the according to the normal habitable zone, I've got the Handwavia itself. I really need a name for that. I need a proper name for that planet. And I have the planet which I've marked as Romance, because it's the planetary romance kind of sword and planet thing. And then a little bit further in is the desert planet. And I remember I cited that paper that said it would be potentially possible for some things there. So Fasath is the desert planet. Handwavia is where King Tensha of Nanamo is and all that. Mm-hmm. And this is on the 5th planet, Romance.
Why Romance?
Why did I call it that?
Yeah. What is the romance genre?
As in planetary romance, like John Carter of Mars, all that kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
Sword and Planet, planetary romance. Not exactly the same, but they're kind of connected.
Cool. That's awesome. I will relink this stat sheet in the show notes for this, so people don't have to go and find episode 7. That's really cool, man. It is. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, after you.
I was about to say it's really cool. Like becoming familiar with these places and being all like, "Oh, Fasath, I know about this. This is a thing that we've talked about before." And it's kind of like reading the world's slowest and longest novel. It's just it takes forever to get through, but you're like, oh,
that's what I'm going for.
That's really cool. Anyway, you had a point you were going to say?
Oh yeah. So if you look at the stat sheet that I gave way back for this system, item F or object F, which is the 5th planet, Romance, if you look at its relative surface gravity.
It's 0.6. Oh, I see what you're going with. Yeah.
Which is a classical thing for Sword and Planet kind of fiction, is that the gravity is lighter there, so humans from Earth are stronger because their muscles are used to the much heavier gravity.
Cool. And also lower gravity means that stuff flies a little bit easier, so that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It's easier to have sky privateers.
Are people able to cross planets in Handwavia, or is it just isolated planets?
Why do you ask?
Why do I ask?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know if one day these sky pirates can visit Vasath.
I would suspect that if anywhere could do it, it would be this planet.
Okay, so
It seems to fit in with there, and we know that people came, or that things travelled to Vasath from elsewhere.
Oh, okay. Man, did you ever see that Disney film? Is it called Treasure Planet? I think, yeah, Treasure Planet.
I have not.
It's really good. You should go watch it. It's very, very good. But
one of my friends is a big fan of it. It's kind of seen as one of Disney's. Most people see it as one of Disney's weaker ones, but I know a friend who's a big defender of it.
No, I think most people think of it as being one of Disney's strong ones that doesn't get celebrated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there's a really good video essay on this. I'll see if I can find it again and link it in the show notes. And I think the basic shtick was that it was basically set up to fail in terms of like when it was released, in terms of budgets and things like that. And it just didn't do very well, and ergo Disney didn't spend a whole lot of time pushing it and things like that. But only afterwards it gained like a cult following. People were like, actually, this is a really great film, and circumstances led to the fact that it just never took off. I'm in the latter camp. I think it really is a really great film. I think some of the CG stuff is dated quite heavily. But that doesn't detract from the storytelling part of it. Anyway, I bring this up to say that they have essentially space pirates, and it's like galleys in space. Is it galleys or galleons? Which is the correct word?
They mean different things, I think.
Are they both ships?
I think a galley is the kitchen of a ship.
Oh, okay. So let's go galleon then.
But hold on. It is because you're a galley slave, and they're the guys who like pull oars. So it's a type of ship as well.
Okay. It's also a place where you hang artwork. But anyhow, so so anyway, there was they basically was like space galleons. I was kind of like, I wonder, would people from the Romance planet go all space galleon and fly over to Passad? Like, that's really cool. It's like real high fantasy.
Probably not.
Aw, Bill.
Probably not with like legit space galleons.
Bill.
Maybe a space man-o-war or
a space
ship of the line.
A man-o-war. That's a band.
It is a band. It's a kind of ship as well.
Oh, interesting. A man-o-war ship. I love the way I know nothing about ships, and they all just look like ships to me. Like it's a ship. It's a wooden yoke with sails. Bill give it and Bill take it away. He makes an idea pop in my head, and he's like, nope. Anyhow, that was cool, man. Is there anything else? So there's that bit about the eagle eye. People will be able to see where it is. Anything else?
Well, now everyone will see it because you told everyone.
I am the most eagle eye. But yeah, anything else in it?
No, I think that's it all. So yeah, this is the first thing I've written that is set in romance. Which again, I need to find a new actual name for. So far, only one of the planets has a proper name.
Fasath. It's a cool name. I'm sure you'll get one. Will you tell us when you get it?
I certainly will. There's actually one more Easter egg there, which has been an Easter egg I don't think I even mentioned was in the Fasath stuff. So I'm going to leave that there and see can anyone figure that out.
Okay, no, I'm gonna not attempt that one. I feel like you should always duck out when you're on top. I nailed the last one, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to attempt that. We'll leave it up to the listeners.
Quit while you are ahead.
Quit while you are ahead.
Precisely.
Cool. All right, shall we move on to a bit of aspect stuff?
Move on to aspect stuff, indeed.
Okay, so we don't intend to release podcasts after Q&A episodes. But given that I went away on holidays this month, I'm probably not going to get a video out this month. So we thought to try and keep the roughly monthly basis of this podcast, we do a podcast now, which means talk about the Q&A thing. So yeah, this is happening. It's a once-off sort of thing. I released a video called Aspect Q&A. I can always forget the name of my videos. But Aspect... Verbal Aspect Q&A. Are you okay, Bill?
No.
You sound so sad.
This is cold.
I know, man.
You know the way when you're... What?
No, I know. Colds are a nightmare.
But you know the way when you're sick, it makes you feel miserable.
Yeah.
And you just feel like generally, I haven't felt that so much. I felt really angry.
You feel angry. This cold is making you angry.
Yeah, the other day, like I woke up. I think it was Monday. Monday morning, I woke up and I was really like sick and I felt really wretched. And I wasn't sad about it. I was just really annoyed. I was furious about being sick.
Man, I get that sometimes as well. Especially if like I feel like there's a thing I need to be doing and I can't. You get like frustrated and aggravated because of it. I think you begin to feel sad when you have like non-cold illnesses. Like if you have Bill's editing the docs in front of me and it's really distracting. I think if you have food poisoning or something, then you feel really sad because it's like just you can't do anything and you're in pain and things like that. But if it's just a cold, it's like this. It's not debilitating enough to make you feel sad, but it can make you feel annoyed. I'm with you on that. Anyhow, aspect video. So the main thing I want to bring up with this is probably going to be a really short point is the continued saga that is, does English have a habitual future? And I mentioned this on the Q&A and I got lots of responses and stuff. Before I get into that though, I want to address the thing that you said in the last episode, Bill, but that did not make the last episode because I did a terrible job explaining it. You basically were like, okay, surely English has a habitual future with the construction, I will have been working. Yeah?
Yeah.
I will have been. And so I butchered my way through a 10-minute explanation about why that is not habitual, when the clear and obvious answer to that is that it is called the future perfect, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And it's just an aspect. It's one of the 4 aspects of English. So whilst I can totally see how it could be habitual, I think what's going on with the I will have been construction is that it has perfect meaning, ergo we put it in the perfect camp. Its perfect meaning overrides any sort of habituality it would have, because it's not purely habitual the way the used to construction is, if that makes sense.
See that last sentence again?
So the used to construction is purely habitual. It doesn't really have any other function other than habituality. Sort of. Whereas the I will have been working sounds like it could be habitual, but it also has a very strong perfect thing.
That makes sense.
So I think that's maybe why they lumped it into the future perfect. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyhow, yeah, so it is not classed. So I will have been working, I will have been going is not classed as a future habitual. Makes sense?
I think it does.
From the responses under the Q&A about this future habitual thing, the I will used to be working, or whatever construction I gave, is that I'm pretty confident now that it's not even a dialect thing. I think people are just, possibly because I didn't explain it very well, are just like getting the wrong shtick. Like a lot of people are kind of like, I can totally see how this happens, in the sense that we have this idea of a future, I will, and we have the idea of a habitual, used to, and you put the two together and you can kind of word for word parse that thing, ergo it must exist in English. And that's not how things work. And I think people are kind of like, when I brought it up, the people are kind of taking it as a challenge to try and construct the future habitual without actually asking the question, does this habitual actually exist? Make sense? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and I think a great example, and the flip side is that some people did give like examples of it in action. And a good example is U/Zen10's thing, where he was like, the example dialogue he gave was person 1, I used to work there. Person 2 replies, I will have used to work there. And the sort of connotation is that person 2 is like using a highly marked, stylized form to highlight the used to, if you know what I mean. Like it's a non-standard construction, like a poetic license sort of thing. And loads of people cited poetic license examples. And that's great and all, but that doesn't mean that English grammaticalizes this thing, you know? Because if we then allow that...
English as she is actually spoke.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we allow like stylized or poetic license or highly marked things, then we also need to allow Yoda's speech, for example, into like what English is. We'd have to say that is a correct construction in English, which would be nonsense. Or like me Tarzan, you Jane. We'd also have to allow that as a feature of English.
He never says that in the original book.
Oh, does he not?
No, the first sentence he says to her is... Actually, I'm going to go find that, just because this is a bugbear of mine.
A bugbear? Is a bugbear a D&D character by any chance?
It's a D&D monster, yeah. Hold on, I'm going to be moving away from podcast mic, but I'm carrying my phone with me. Hold on.
Oh, Bill's gone on travels. Uh-oh.
It's actually, like, it's the story in the novel is... pretty racist, first of all. And second of all, so different from like the popular idea of how it worked and how he speaks.
Bill, did we perhaps cover this in the past?
I feel like we did.
Okay. Give a real quick one about this, just in case we did. We don't want to have 2 big sections of this.
So, the first thing that Tarzan actually says to Jane is Jane Porter. He calls her name, right?
Okay.
So that's just calling out, so we won't count it. The first actual sentence he says is, yes, your man, Jane Porter. Your savage primeval man come out of the jungle to claim his mate, the woman who ran away from him.
That's a lot more eloquent than we usually associate with Tarzan.
And you got to realize here that English is the second language he learns to speak. He learns to speak French, first of all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. But either way, Bill.
It's super weird.
Yeah. But either way, we shouldn't allow me, Tarzan, you, Jane, as a grammatical English construction. Just because we can tack together a whole load of words and our brains can kind of make sense of them doesn't mean that is a feature of English. And I think a lot of people were kind of like, of course it's a feature, because we can tack all these words together. It has to be a feature, and that's not how things work. And again, I think an awful lot of this confusion is down to the fact that I did not explain it very well, which is on my bad. And the last thing I want to bring up related to this habitual future thing is a good couple of people as well brought up prescriptivism versus descriptivism in this,
right?
In saying that prescriptivists will say that I will used to work here is incorrect, but descriptivists will be all like, yeah, sure, that totally works. And I was kind of on board with this, but then I talked to like Zidnaf and I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, hang on, that's not how prescriptivism or descriptivism works at all. Like, just to clear this up in case anyone was thinking this, prescriptivism is like almost, I see it almost like moral judgments of like non-linguists, right? Like non-linguists going, oh, you shouldn't say X thing. You should say this thing. This is how you should talk.
Yeah. You shouldn't put prepositions at the end of sentences.
Right, exactly. And specifically by non-linguists, right? And then descriptivism, I feel like, is the linguist branch, right? Like every linguist I've ever read, their whole shtick is to just describe what a language does without moral judgment, right?
There's literally no such thing as prescriptivist linguistics anymore.
Right, exactly, because they just spell out what they find, like they note the generalities, they note the exceptions. That's all descriptivism. So it would be false to say that a prescriptivist would disallow I will use to, because a descriptivist, like a linguist, would also disallow that because it's not found as a general English feature. If you know what I mean?
Well, allowing or disallowing isn't even the point. The point is it actually said?
Right,
because that's what they're concerned with. It is not a feature of the language as the language is spoken.
Right, exactly. And like again, linguists will like often note anomalies, but that also doesn't make it a feature. Like the I do be, which we talked about last time, the Hiberno English thing. A linguist will note that as being like an anomaly, a sort of an addition to the general English rule set. That doesn't then mean that like I do be going to the shop is a feature of general English. Do you know what I mean?
No, it is a feature of Hiberno English.
It is a feature of Hiberno English, but not a feature of general English. So it's a minefield of like what prescriptivism and descriptivism means, what is or isn't general English, what can or can we not interpret. Like it's it's real dense sort of stuff. But anyway, point being, I will use to work here is, as far as I can tell, well, I know for fact, like it's not English. Like it's not standard English because it's not mentioned in any of the literature. And I also think it's not a dialectal thing at all. I think just people are constructing it for the aforementioned reasons. And so hopefully that'll put this to bed because, my God, so many comments came my way, man. It was crazy.
Hopefully it will have used to have been put to bed.
Hey, and a new argument spawns. So that's all I have to say. Again, apologies to the listeners here. We have a very, very short show this week, but again, this is largely because I was on holidays, and I hope that's okay. Normal service will resume next time.
Actually, I want to check. I'd forgotten that I did have something for the green room. Let me just double check here, see if this is available yet.
What are you talking about? Okay, cool. Surprises.
Right, yes. I do have something to say.
No, okay. Total surprise for me. It's not in the notes. Let's go.
I sort of am on another podcast.
No. Bill, you're cheating on me. This is ridiculous.
Well, only completely sort of, as in I was in the audience when it was recorded.
Oh, did you go to Blind Boy?
I did not. This happened actually ages ago.
Okay.
This happened when I visited London back in July, but the podcast wasn't released yet. It's only just come out in the past few days.
Oh, what's the podcast?
The podcast is called History Makers.
Oh. And they had you on as a guest because you make history.
And no, just I was in London, and I was talking to, before I went, I was talking to a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years, and I said to them, do you want to hang out? And they said, oh yeah, and then they texted me that this event was on. They had just seen it on Twitter, and they got us tickets, and we went along, and we're there for the recording of 2 episodes of the podcast. The theme of it is looking at inventors from history and what they made and the effects of the things they invented. And it's done by Lucy Rogers, who's a doctor of robotics.
Oh, wow.
A technological discipline. And Beck Hill and Harriet Brain, who are comedians. And the 3 of them discuss the person and discuss their creation, discuss the effects of it. And it was a lot of fun. The 2 episodes I was there for were for the Grace Hopper was the first person featured, who invented compilers for programming languages, I think. I'll have to re-listen to it again to make sure I've got the details right. But yeah, like invented compiling programming languages and was hugely important in the development of computer programming. and I think originated the term computer bug.
Really?
Yes, because the computer bug was actually a bug that flew into the computer and got stuck and was like interrupting something.
They were literally bugs back in the day.
Yeah, it was literally a moth. So she was like, "Oh, there's a bug in the computer," and then it became normal language.
Man, it is amazing though in the early days of computing how many women were involved. A lot of the big breakthroughs in computing, at least from what I remember from listening to Crash Course Computer Science, I think it was. A lot of the big breakthroughs in computing were down to women. Which is pretty cool and horrifically under-celebrated.
And this isn't exactly the same thing, but there's probably a little bit of an overlap, is that computer was originally a job description. That someone was a computer. It was someone who computed things and did data entry. And that was seen as a woman's job because it was kind of a clerical, secretarial sort of position. And so I'd imagine that a lot of those people doing that job were responsible for some of those breakthroughs just by seeing more efficient ways to do things.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
As well as the women who did it through like academic means. And I mean, I think Grace Hopper was in the Navy for her entire career. She was in the US Navy.
I think I know who Grace Hopper is. This all seems to make sense. Yes, I think she was one of the people talked about on Crash Course.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. You're on. I can't find the show on Overcast, which is a bit terrible.
I'll send you a link to it anyway. I was able to find it on Podcast Addict on Android.
Yeah, maybe they just haven't submitted to the iTunes store. Yeah, send me a link and I'll stick the link in the show notes.
Sure. And the second episode, the maker was John Harrison, who I've actually mentioned on Artifexian before. He was the guy who invented the naval chronometer, which solved the longitude problem.
Yeah.
And made navigating much more accurate.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And you were on stage with these people for these podcasts. That's amazing, man.
I was not. I was in the audience.
My brain refuses to accept that. That's class, man. That's really cool. I'll have a listen. See, can I spot your laugh from the audience?
It's not unlikely.
Unless you have anything else to add, should I go on about Morocco?
Yeah, I'd love to hear about Morocco.
Okay, I'm not going to give you a blow-by-blow account of Morocco. Rather, I'll try and give something that is some interesting questions I have about culture and some interesting, I guess, bits of world building. There wasn't a whole amount of world building I could uncover, mainly because English is not a very well-spoken language in Morocco. It's French and Spanish and Arabic obviously dominate. So there wasn't a whole lot I could do. But the one thing I did find out, which is pretty cool, I saw a Berber flag in real life because we went to a Berber camp. We camped out in the desert, and the camp was
a pretty dope flag.
It's it's pretty nice. I think, hold on, if I can just get the flag back up here, Berber flag. It reminds me of like the colourful flags like Comoros and South Africa, those real like intensity colourful ones. The picture on Wikipedia is not entirely accurate in the sense that you see the way the character, the glyph, goes from like thin to thick and things like that.
Yeah,
that's not really what I saw. What I saw was just like uniform strips of cloth.
Right.
This looks like a real stylized computer version of it. Not to say that can't happen, but I didn't see that one. And yeah, it was really cool. It was a really cool thing to see. For those who can't go to the show notes, this is a 2:3 aspect ratio rectangular flag. It is divided into 3 horizontal stripes. The top stripe is a sky blue, the middle is a green, and the bottom is a yellow. And in the center of the flag, over these 3 stripes, is a glyph, which I think is a Berber glyph. I think it's According to this, it's the letter Yaz or Aza in the Berber language. And how would you describe this? It looks like a straight line with two semicircle sort of swishes at the top and bottom, if that makes sense.
A straight vertical line.
A straight vertical line with two semicircles at the top and bottom. So that was a cool thing I found. The other bit of cultural another bit of cool cultural thing is I went to a town called Chefchaouen, and Chefchaouen is a town up in the mountains, and it is blue. Everything's blue in it. All the houses are painted blue. The doors are blue. Everything's blue. I'll leave some pictures in the show notes of these things. And the cool bit of culture here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It looks really neat.
Yeah.
The bit of culture here is that it is painted blue. There's a whole load of theories as to why it's painted blue. Some of the least plausible ones are that the color wards off mosquitoes. The Jewish people brought the color with them when they arrived in Chefchaouen, and I think the Wikipedia. Go on.
The people who lived there didn't have blue before then?
Well, didn't have the practice of painting their walls blue.
Okay.
I don't know. Again, I think that's very apocryphal. And Wikipedia lists a third thing that I can't remember. All of those are pretty apocryphal. The one that I think is the most plausible is the one that it is painted blue to ward off spirits. It's like almost like a religious type thing. And I think that's really cool. It's a really neat idea that like you paint houses a certain way to ward off evil spirits. And so that's a cool bit of world building. Those are the two basic bits of world building I uncovered. Again, not a whole lot because I can't speak Arabic or French or Spanish, so it's a bit hard.
You have a bit of Duolingo Spanish, don't you?
I mean, I did Duolingo a bit in Spanish, but when forced to talk a bit of Spanish in real life, you suddenly realize how little you actually know. I would say I nearly got by better with French than I did with Spanish because I just forget.
Oh, wow.
I just forget all the Spanish. Now, don't take that as like I spoke French. More like after a while, I was able to say like "du jus d'orange," like 2 orange juices, like very, very basic broken French. But yeah, okay. But so outside of this, I have 2 questions I want to ask of you or Artifexia based on my travels. One is, I am now confused as to what the concept of African American means.
Okay.
In that I was in Africa, right? And I was surrounded by African people, right? And we met this one chap who was a first-generation American. So he was American, but his father was Moroccan. And he was back in Morocco to visit, extend the family and stuff. And it occurred to me, this person does not look like what I think an African American looks like. They look like a sort of Mediterranean person. But they are African American by definition. So I wonder, would it be appropriate for them to use African American, or would they say like a Moroccan American? And if so, when is African American appropriate? Now, I spoke to the captain about this, and she has a good theory. She reckons it's when you have indeterminate ancestry, like you come from somewhere in Africa, like as in your descendants were brought over, who knows where. The record keeping is terrible. You can't really trace it, so you use the catch-all African American term. And if, say, you're Moroccan American, you know this, so you'll just use Moroccan American. So have you ever come across it? Have you ever ran into this? Has this ever crossed your mind?
Generally, yeah. I mean, I understand the thing you're getting at here. From what the captain said, by that definition, Barack Obama isn't African American.
By that definition, because Obama knows where he's from?
Yeah, because Obama is Kenyan. He's half Kenyan, isn't he?
Yeah, that's
Kenyan American.
I didn't know that, but that would make sense. I mean, maybe it started off like that, and then it's become a catch-all term for anyone who is black. I don't know.
It could be. And I know there was I remember hearing at the time of his original, like his first election, that there were people that felt he didn't represent other Black Americans because he didn't have that, or because he did have that background that he knew of his background. And now I'm sure that was a very much a minority thing. I don't think it was a widely held opinion, but I remember there being part of that his experience wasn't rooted in the same kind of experience as a lot of Black Americans.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's not really for me to say, but
I mean, this is kind of why I'm asking on the show, hoping that someone who it is for them to say would point this out to me.
There's also there are discussions about how much you consider North Africa to be Africa in the sense that the rest of Africa is, that sub-Saharan Africa is. Like, they can be considered distinct in a lot of ways.
Because boy, are they. Like, again, I've only been there for 12 days, right? But like, the climate is very different. Like, the last town we stayed in was like, it was indistinguishable from a Mediterranean town, like on the other side of the Mediterranean. And you're kind of like, you had to really remind yourself that you were in Africa. So yeah, the concept, man, of say an Egyptian person being like, I am African American, if they're of Egyptian descent, it just seems it seems like I don't want to say the wrong nomenclature because I don't want to tell people what they can or can't say, but I suppose it's so rooted in the idea of African American equals Black, and it does not equal like Arab per se, or it does not equal Mediterranean person per se.
I'm sure a lot of Egyptian Americans would consider themselves, well, no, I'm not going to say I'm sure that they would, but I could perceive that some of them may consider themselves Arab American rather than African American.
Exactly, yeah. So essentially what I'm getting at is here, I wonder if are there any Americans listening, or in any other country, who are of African descent, who are perhaps who are not like Black, in quotes, who are people of color but not Black, and like what is the nomenclature? What do you identify as? I'm very, very interested in this because it literally did not dawn on me until I landed in Africa, and I was suddenly like, wait a minute, this place is huge. There's so many different ethnicities. It's crazy. Like, I'd love to know what the actual thing is here, and I'd rather not go on what some white person says. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather listen to the actual people, which would be great if those people exist in Artifexia.
Yeah, there's and so, to an extent, I think this exists down the east of Africa as well, because of the history of Arabic trading along the east, so that there are Arabic communities there, or populations that have Arabic descent, as far as I know. Yeah, and then of course in South Africa, because of all the different kinds of colonization that went on there, you have people of South Asian descent. And you have, I think there's, because of Dutch colonization, there are people of like Indonesian descent. There's communities of people of Indonesian descent, I think. Around the Cape and stuff.
Yeah, South Africa is a real melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities.
Yeah, and then of course there's the diversity, the ethnic diversity of the kind of the pre-colonization peoples there, or the pre-European colonization peoples there. So there's a lot going on in that bit of the continent.
Definitely. So again, the question is, what does African American mean to African Americans, essentially, in a nutshell? And I'd love, if you are African American, or if you're African, whatever, African European or Australian, whatever, I'd love to know what this means to you and how it ties in with the notion of Africa being really big.
And of course, it'll change according to wherever the other place is, because of how immigrants are treated differently in different places, and how identities are constructed differently in America than they are in France or Russia or Australia or whatever.
Have you ever heard of a person identifying themselves as African Irish? Has that ever been a thing that you've come across? I've never heard that nomenclature.
I've never heard that term used. No.
Yeah, because I've one friend who is of Nigerian descent, and like he'll talk about that, and like it's fine. But I've never heard him identify as African Irish, that particular term, which again is interesting. Anyway, yeah, again it is amazingly diverse place, and again anyone who is in any way related, please let me know what you think about all this. Yeah,
for sure.
And then last thing I wanted to ask of you, if you know the answer, and then of Artifexia, the relevant people in Artifexia, if they know the answer. I'd like to know what the stance is with regards to Islam and weed. Because Morocco, for anyone who doesn't know, Morocco is, there's a lot of weed being sold in Morocco, particularly up north. We accidentally stumbled across a weed farm while we were hiking.
Class.
It was great. Actually, what happened was, I'll tell you the story.
That sounds like the beginning of a terrifying story.
It does. It sounds like we should have been on a documentary, like Banged Up Abroad or whatever. No, what happened was we were hiking and we met this dog, and this dog was super friendly, and he became our guide. Like he'd walk up the trail a little bit and wait for us, and then when we caught up with him, he'd walk down the trail a little bit more, and we were like, oh, let's just follow this dog. It clearly is going to the end point of this trail.
But Edgar.
Yeah?
Did you pet the dog?
No, because the dog was a bit kind of beat up. So he had a bloody nose and stuff. So I was like, I don't want to pet the dog. But he was lovely. He was a lovely dog. Anyhow, we followed the dog for a little bit. And next thing you know, the dog leads us right into a weed farm. And we were like, oh, I see what's going on here. This dog belongs to the weed farmer, and the dog is simply going home to the weed farmer. And we were like, shit, we should get out of here. So we took some pictures, and then we got out of there. But anyhow, Morocco, they do like their weed, and as a tourist, you're continuously sold weed, especially up north. And then I was kind of like, hang on now, the predominant religion here is Islam. And Islam, as far as I'm aware, and please correct me if I'm wrong, internet, definitely forbids drinking. You can't drink if you're Muslim. And I believe the line goes something like, you shall not indulge in the fruit of the vine or whatever. So drinking is disallowed, but I want to know, is weed not allowed either? Or are they just selling it to tourists and they don't consume it themselves? I have no idea. Does the Quran explicitly forbid weed? Does it not forbid weed? Is there a loophole there? Anyone who's Muslim, I want to find out what the crack is here. Please talk about this. I really want to know.
Just because it's banned doesn't mean that people won't do it, though. It's also illegal in Ireland.
Yeah, but I get the impression, again, I don't want to speak for Muslims here, but I get the impression that when the Quran says you can't drink, that's taken very seriously, and they don't drink, as far as I know. Or at least from my dad's experience living in Saudi Arabia, it was kind of like, no, the locals really don't drink. All the expats drank, but the locals just don't. So if the Quran explicitly says that it's bad, then I would imagine that they wouldn't consume it. But then I'm kind of like, well, where do you get the idea then that it's okay to sell it? Do you then go I don't care about people who aren't Muslim? Does the Quran even forbid it? Because I know it forbids drinking, but I don't know if it forbids other drugs. It can't, surely the Quran can't forbid, itemize all the drugs. Thou shalt not do meth, thou shalt not do heroin, and then if it doesn't itemize everything, who calls this? I think, again, I have a whole lot of questions about this that I couldn't really get at with a Google, so I'd really like if there's any Muslim people in the sub to talk to me about it and get to the bottom of this, because it's fascinating. It's basically how religious law kind of works, and I really want to get to the bottom of it, if that makes sense. Unless, of course, Bill, you know something here.
I mean, I just think even if there is a prohibition on paper, people can just ignore it. It doesn't seem that far-fetched.
No, not at all. But again, I think the drink thing, man. Like there is a prohibition on the drink, and drink is not consumed. Like there was no beer on sale whatsoever in all of Morocco. The
Yeah,
closest
but that's a different drug. Like maybe it's just for whatever other cultural reason, one is more emphasized than the other.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Yeah, they might be like, oh, the drink is serious, so we should stay away from that. But maybe weed is downplayed a little bit. Ergo, it's a bit of a gray area, perhaps. I don't know, but it was very interesting. And yeah, so that's those are the things from Morocco. I don't want to go and give a blow by blow how the trip went because this is a world building podcast. I did not go to any museums though, Bill. You'd be glad to hear.
I'm glad for your sake.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so that was my trip. Any questions?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, should we? Oh my God, it's an hour and a half plus editing. It's going to be such a small episode. Again, I apologize, everyone. We're back to normal service next month. Shall we end it there?
Let's leave it at that.
Cool. All right. I'll see you next month. Bill, thank you for talking to me. Thanks to the listeners for listening to us. Thanks to the Patreons for supporting us. Y'all are amazing. See you next time. Edgar
out.